What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Anders of the Almighty Bloody Hammers. Great to talk to you today, man. Thank you for your time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and congratulations with your site and all your work you've been doing. I like the sound of it.
Oh, thank you, man. I
New
appreciate
York.
it.
That's what this album's all about. This album is very New York influenced. So
Oh, really? Like
it's cool to be
Typo, not Life
somebody.
of
Yeah,
Agony?
yeah. I mean, I guess you could say that, but really, on this particular album, um, when we had just put out our last album, The Summoning, only 6 months before the COVID hit, and we were told to stay home, and as you know, it was hitting New York was ground zero right from the beginning, and it was it was pretty terrifying. And I lived in New York in like the East Village for off and on a little bit in 2000 2001, and I love classic punk. I love the Ramones, the Misfits. I know they were Jersey, but still kind of New York. And then, just I love all that stuff. And whenever the pandemic was hitting New York, I was following like Marky Ramone, and he was look concerned, and like Kimra Failer from Voluptuous Horror, Karen Black. Everybody seemed like really worried. I mean, with good reason. And it just sort of got me. I wasn't writing a Bloody Hammers song, but a Bloody Hammers album, because I didn't think it would be a Bloody Hammers album. I thought it would be a side project of some sort. So I was just writing and writing, and really being inspired by old school New York punk, like specifically 70s kind of punk, early 80s punk, and like the more melodic. And I just figured I would put it out as a solo project, or maybe some sort of like side project, whatever, because I didn't think that my label would want to put it out because it was going in a different direction. But anyway, when I finished it, I was looking for just to get their okay for me to put it out on Bandcamp as some new name, and they stopped me and they said, no, we would definitely want to put this out. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I got to thinking, I was like, I guess it's not that different. So it turned out to be a Bloody Hammers album after all.
Yeah, so it's fair to say that this isn't just like a continuation of The Summoning, right? It's almost fair to say that the brand new album, Songs of Unspeakable Terror, is almost kind of like a standout a little bit in the Bloody Hammers catalog, right?
Yeah, it's a sidestep, I would say. It's a lockdown labor of love. Just me, just kind of having a good time and not really knowing what it was going to be. But it turned out to be a Bloody Hammers album. But it wasn't the follow up to The Summoning that I thought. It was not the next Bloody Hammers album after The Summoning that I thought it would be. But I'm also okay with it. I'm also very proud of it, and I like it.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so like, well, what I'm interested in is because with the Bloody Hammers catalog, I mean, when you look at like Under Satan's Son or Lovely Sword of Death or The Horrific Case of Bloody Hammers, it almost seems like you were able to kind of like take a new approach to everything, right?
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really all organic. It was just me just not sure if I was going to live or die. Well, I mean, we had a lot of people. We had a lot of New Yorkers actually fleeing down here. I live in a very touristy area of North Carolina in the mountains, and New York license plate were just going by my house more than North Carolina license plates. All the Airbnbs were filled up with New Yorkers. It was just people were fleeing the city. And which, I mean, where I live, it's a lot of New Yorkers anyway. There's a lot of retirees from New York here. But yeah, it was, I don't know. I was just really inspired. I was really just feeling like doing something fast and fun and punk and melodic. And that's just where it ended up. Like I said, I really thought it was going to be some sort of new side project thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've noticed that with Songs of Unspeakable Terror, that there were songs that had kind of like different vibes behind it, like going from A Night to Dismember to like Not of This Earth to, Waking the Dead or Night of the Witch. Like, it's almost fair to say, like, is every song like representative of an emotion that you were feeling at a particular time?
Hmm. Um, I can't remember exactly. It's just sort of a blur. Like I was just writing songs, and they were coming pretty fast and uh, organically, and it just I didn't really stop to give much thought about it. I just like, wow, I like that melody, or I like this riff or whatever, and I just kept working on it and kept working on it and on all the songs. So it was all a bunch. It was just like a collective piece for me.
Mm-hmm. And there was no like preconceived idea on what you wanted it to sound like. It was almost kind of like a rolling the dice sort of scenario.
Well, I definitely wanted to go like punk. I definitely, old school punk. And like I said, I really imagined it would be some lost, obscure record that would be on Bandcamp that nobody would listen to. Like I didn't really think I would be talking to you or having any kind of vinyl or whatever. So I was just having fun, just trying to keep my mind off of all the bullshit, the politics, the protests. And I mean, that's not bullshit. That was a good reason, but you know what I mean? Like just so much going on every day. It was just kind of toxic to to just bury yourself in the news all the time. I just had to go the opposite direction of that.
Mm-hmm.
And just I was going for escapism for myself, and hopefully after it was released, it would be escapism for other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do commentary on 2020. I didn't want to do any kind of narratives about 2020. I was just going for escapism.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting way of putting it because I feel like, there's some artists, who are using all of this turmoil and all this uncertainty as like fuel for their creativity. But I think having like a method of it, creating something that represents escapism is also something that's very unique to do as well.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's fueled by the real life horrors of the. So you mean and subconsciously it's very much 2020, but it's me going against of trying to escape it.
Hmm.
So it was fueled by, but it's not a narrative on 2020. You know what I mean?
Hmm. As a vocalist, have you always needed to hear the music to come up with lyrics, or has there ever been a time where lyrics could maybe influence the music itself?
Yeah, I tend to like if I think of a title, I'll write it down, and it could take years to show like where it will be, like where it'll show up. But yeah, usually it's just like melodies pop in my head, and I can't tell you how many good songs. I don't know just how many good songs. Not only me, but just musicians in general have been lost before the voice recorder on phones because like ideas will just pop in my head, like little melodies or little things. Like a night to dismember. Like I remember, all I had was Saturday, like that little part. I just had Saturday, and I recorded that in my phone, just that melody. I had a melody and just kind of mumbled the rest, like. But if I hear something, it's like, oh, that's cool, and then sometimes I'll refer back to my list of titles or ideas and see if something will fit. And sometimes something will fit, like say Town at Dreaded Sundown. I had that written down for years, and I finally it fit in a mumble that I was doing, and I could build the rest of the song around that. And the same with A Night to Dismember. Yeah, so titles are helpful just to have laying around. Like if you think of a good title, write it down, and it'll fit in somewhere eventually.
Hmm. Is the music, do you like to leave lyricism open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe engage the listener into what like the meaning of the song could be?
I don't think about the listener so much. I just really just write for myself and then hope it falls in line with other people. But yeah, I mean, I lyrically do like interpretation. It's very interesting to hear people's feedback on what a song means to them. Uh, and you know, it's like From Beyond the Grave, like people, that song was, you know, it was meant to be a fun song, but it was also inspirational to some people who maybe have just recently lost somebody, or you know, to maybe connect with somebody. And my sister, like the last record, my sister had just died from opioids, and my mom died from opioids, and you know, we've had a lot of problems uh, with the opioid crisis, and that stuff tends to find its way into my lyrics, but not in an obvious way. It's just maybe you have to pick it out. But yeah, I like for people to just whatever, you know, it could mean whatever it means to you. It means to you. Like I don't care. I'm not going to correct somebody if they take it some way that I didn't intend it,
Hmm. Do you?
unless it's something bad.
Yeah, of course. Is there just inspiration for lyricism in the music come out of nowhere sometimes, or do you almost need to be in a certain place in a certain element in order for like the inspiration to flow through?
Yeah, the best place to be is just not thinking. Keep your mind out of it as much. For me, is to keep your mind out of it as much as possible. Don't dissect it. Don't think about it too much. Just let it flow from your subconscious, or just wherever songs come from, wherever ideas. Are you a songwriter?
Uh, to a degree, I'm an artist.
Okay, but you probably know, like, it's the best stuff comes when you're not thinking. It's just things just pop up, and just the songs that you have to work on. I tend to just delete things that I'm just taking too long. Like if I have an idea but it's not really coming together, and I keep working on it, keep working on it, it never gets any better. It's just delete that and move on to something else. It's the ones that come fast. It's the ones that come quick and, well, you know, just come together really fast. Are the ones that tend to, you know, are the best songs.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine too that inspiration strikes at very inconvenient times, right?
Yeah, like I said, it's like I've never been to a professional studio. I've never worked with producers or engineers or anything. I have a little humble studio in my basement, and I have just crude way of recording. But it's like in the middle of the night. I don't, you know, it's Bloody Hammer is really just me and my wife, and she helps me out. But you know, if we go on tour, we get people to help us out. But for like the albums, it's just like something pops in my head randomly, and it's good, and I'm instantly inspired. I can go down in the basement and start laying down a drum beat or something, and just start building the song from the ground up, and without running it by anybody or seeking approval from band members or producers or labels. Just knock it out, and that's just how I prefer to work.
Hmm. And like kind of like going back to that because like have you ever had a time where like you feel the impulse, like you feel that creative energy, but nothing comes out? Because I feel like that's got to be very, very painful to deal with sometimes.
No, I never feel that. I mean, I've never been in a situation like maybe some of the old school guys where they have to meet a deadline. Napalm, like my record labels, just whenever I have something, it's just whenever I have something. They're not on my case about, okay, we got to have a record like now. Like, look, I remember like interview like Alice Cooper. People talk like in the '70s. People like they had to have an album every year, and there was a lot of pressure to like, constantly come up with, you know, deadlines. Like, all right, as soon as you're off the road, you're hitting the studio, and you got to have a record. And it's not like that anymore. You know, in today's world. I mean, you know, there's people like Spotify. There's people out there who say you got to have something constantly, but it's not really pressure. It's just more of a suggestion.
Hmm.
So for me, I don't have that pressure. It's just whenever inspiration strikes, it strikes. And when it does strike, it tends to come in bundles of multiple songs, and that's helpful. And I mean, sometimes I'll have a song that's good, and I don't have ideas for other songs, and it just kind of lays around for a year or two until inspiration strikes for everything else.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just wait for it to come.
And you bring up a good point too, because I feel like the longer you work on something, like the harder it is to kind of like capture a moment or capture that feeling. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, at that point, you're just forcing it, and it's probably not a good idea. It's it's probably just let it go. I have had like there is exceptions to that rule. Like there was a song on the last Bloody Hammers album called "Now the Screaming Starts," and I was working on that one and working on that one, and I almost deleted it. And but my wife heard it. Devalia, she's also in the band, and she's like, no, don't delete that song. Keep working on it because it's good. And I was like, really? And so I did. Like, just her encouragement pushed me to finish it, and it turned out to be one of our top songs on Spotify. Like, I think it's like number 2 song that was almost deleted. So there is exceptions. It's not always. There's no rules, you know. But if it's something that it's just you just keep on pounding on, keep on pounding, it's just not going anywhere. You just know in your gut, you know, just okay, that one's not gonna work out.
Yeah. And the final question I actually wanted to ask you is because I'm not just a fan of the music for Bloody Hammers, but I'm also a fan of the imagery. Like I loved your photo shoots and your artwork and all of that. Like do you almost feel that maybe like in the album or in a way or like on stage you almost kind of like portray a character in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm definitely an introvert kind of person, and I tend to. We live in the mountains, away from everybody. Like a good, we're pretty private people, and uh, it takes it takes a lot of energy to do a gig or whatever. Like so, you get a little bit more of when you put on a mask and become this other person or do this other thing. I think it gives you a little bit more of some sort of a God. What's the word I'm looking for? A social barrier. You know, when you have this image, it's a little bit of a social barrier uh, when you're a character. I don't know. I haven't. I can't really articulate it because I haven't never been asked that question. I don't think. But yeah, hopefully you know what I'm saying
Yeah, no, definitely. And like
on that.
because some people think like when you portray a character on stage, it's like a Marilyn Manson sort of thing or like a Alice Cooper sort of thing. But I feel like your music is very raw to the point where I think like anybody who wants to get to know who you are, I feel like just listening to your music, that's a great description of who you are, whether you're portraying a character or not.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean on the albums, I'm not really portraying a character or in the music, but maybe the image and the photos and videos, stuff like that. You know, more along the lines of I don't know. I guess just I mean I've heard so many people talk about this, like even like Chelsea Wolfe was talking about, you know, like in the early days, she would like to wear like some sort of veil over her face or something because she had that social anxiety and putting on like some sort of makeup or, you know, you just become someone else and it just gives you a mask.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of bands with like the most like production like on stage or like the most like imagery that's incorporated, whether it's like In This Moment or Rob Zombie or something like that. They all have like the greatest social anxiety, and I feel like how they execute it on stage is almost kind of like a way to escape that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people get a bad rap. Like, I can't really think of anybody specifically, but I've heard people say, oh, like Neil Peart, for example. Neil Peart had just crippling social anxiety, and he was a really introvert. He talks about it in his book and how awkward it is for him to meet people who are just groveling and say, "Oh, you're the best drummer of all that." And it's just awkward. And but you know, some people would say he's an asshole, but you know, but he's not an asshole. He's just an introvert, and he just don't know how to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like everybody like you know, people are we're flattered and everything, and it's, but you don't really know how to deal with, like, express yourself really that as well as an extrovert would, like,
Yeah.
it's weird. It's weird. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, and it's funny, ironically too, because the introverts now are the ones who I feel like are going the least insane during this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my wife and I are like, oh, it's just like pretty much any other year for us, really. I mean, we just we just can't go out to a restaurant.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You guys were
yeah,
social
yeah,
distancing before it was cool.
it's been yeah, it's we've kept ourselves busy. I mean, it's still stressful with just like the social unrest and the fucking Trump bullshit that just won't go away. There's just, and the virus won't go in the vaccine, when's it going to work? And so there's like, all kinds of stuff that's in our social bubble that we have to deal with, but that invades our lives. But yeah, we just keep going, try to stay busy, do some music, try to make some terrible music videos in our basement. And yeah, just keep it busy.
Yeah, isolation is a great fuel for creativity.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is, definitely.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with Bloody Hammers that you would like to promote, like maybe a live stream performance or anything else for the release of Songs of Unspeakable Terror to you'd like to plug?
We're trying to talk about some sort of live stream, but we don't have anything yet. But the album drops tonight at midnight on all the streaming, so hopefully people go and check that out. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. It's organic. It's it's a record that wasn't planned. It's just, I can't think of another word other than organic right now. But I hope everybody checks it out.
Yeah, that's how I describe Bloody Hammers. That's your subgenre, all organic music.
Right.
Yeah.
Just whatever happens.
Yeah. I talked with an artist about that, and I've said that line to them too, and what they wanted to do was grab like a CD of theirs or a vinyl and like leave it in the organic section at the supermarket.
You're right, exactly.
But
yeah.
thank you so much, Anders. Everybody, Bloody Hammer, Songs of Unspeakable Terror, coming out this Friday on Napalm Records. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.